The Silent Monastery. The monastery lay hidden deep in the Carpathian forests, its stone walls darkened by centuries of wind and rain. Few travelers ever reached its gates, and those who did often carried with them rumors, whispers of bells that tolled at midnight, though the monks swore no hand pulled the ropes. Villagers spoke of voices in the walls, and of shadows that walked the cloisters long after prayers were done. In the autumn of 1743, a young man named Andre arrived at its doors. He was scarcely 20, his hands calloused from farm work, his heart heavy with the guilt of sins he could not name aloud. The prior welcomed him with a stern nod, and the heavy gates closed behind him with a sound that felt less like welcome and more like imprisonment. Life in the monastery was austere. Prayers at dawn, labor in silence, the scratching of quills in the scriptorium. Yet Andre soon noticed something that disturbed him. There were fewer monks than he had expected. Corridors felt strangely empty, and certain cells remained locked. When he asked about them, the elder brothers would exchange uneasy glances and say nothing. At night, when the wind howled through the forest, Andre would sometimes hear faint whispers in the stone itself. At first, he dismissed them as tricks of the mind, the echoes of loneliness. But the whispers grew sharper, clearer, until one evening, as he extinguished the last candle in the chapel, he heard it distinctly. His own name, spoken from the wall beside him. Andre. His breath caught. He turned, the shadows lengthening in the wavering candlelight. Nothing stirred, only the carved saints gazing down with hollow eyes. He whispered a prayer, but the sound of his voice trembled. The next morning, he found Brother Iosif gone. His bed was neatly made, his robe folded on the bench, but the man himself had vanished without a trace. None of the monks spoke of it during prayers. None even looked at the empty space. That night, the bells rang. The great bronze tongue swung in the tower, though no monk climbed the stairs to pull the rope. Andre pressed his hands to his ears, yet the sound was inside his skull, reverberating like a command. He rushed to the cloister, hoping to see some explanation, but found only the shadows gathering in the archways, their shapes too tall, too thin to be men of flesh. Andre, the whisper again, closer now, almost at his shoulder. He turned. Andre spun around, heart pounding, but the cloister was empty. The shadows clung to the arches, stretching like black stains across the floor. For a moment, he thought he saw the outline of a figure standing at the far end of the corridor, tall, stooped, its cowl drawn low. But when the candlelight flickered, the figure was gone. The bells ceased suddenly, leaving a silence heavier than the sound itself. It pressed into his ears, into his chest. His knees weakened. He whispered another prayer, though his words faltered, and retreated to his cell. He lay awake until dawn, haunted by the echo of his name. The following days passed with a brittle stillness. No one spoke of Brother Iosif, though his absence gnawed at Andre's thoughts. He tried to focus on copying manuscripts in the scriptorium, but his hands shook, blotting the parchment with ink. The elder monk, Brother Pavel, noticed. "You must empty yourself of fear," Pavel murmured, his voice low, as though afraid of being overheard. "This place, it feeds on fear. Remember that." Andre wanted to ask what he meant, but Pavel lowered his gaze and said no more. That night, Andre dreamed of the monastery bells. They swung above him, their ropes writhing like serpents. From the shadows below, hands reached for him, cold, grasping, pulling. He woke drenched in sweat, the toll of the bells still echoing in his mind. Unable to rest, he lit his candle and wandered the cloister. The monastery was deathly quiet, save for the distant drip of water. He passed the locked cells again, their doors marked with faint carvings, symbols he did not recognize, circles and crosses interwoven like snares. His fingers brushed the wood, and a sudden chill coursed through him. A whisper rose, so near it made his skin prickle. Open. His hand trembled on the latch, though the lock would not yield. His candle sputtered, throwing monstrous shapes across the wall. Andre staggered back, heart hammering. At the far end of the corridor, he glimpsed movement, a monk's robe trailing into the dark. "Brother Iosif?" Andre called. His voice cracked, swallowed by the stone. The figure did not turn. It moved silently, vanishing around the corner. Against his better judgment, Andre followed. The corridor narrowed, the air thick with the smell of damp earth. The stones beneath his feet grew uneven, ancient. He descended a set of steps he had never noticed before, leading deeper beneath the monastery. His candle flickered wildly, casting thin light across walls lined with niches. Each niche held bones, skulls staring from the dark, grins fixed in eternal silence. The crypt. Andre swallowed hard. He should turn back. He should pray. Yet the whisper returned, curling in his ear with unnatural sweetness. "Come closer, Andre." Ahead, the figure paused in the half-light, its shoulders hunched, its face hidden beneath the hood. Slowly it turned. The hooded figure lifted its head, and candlelight caught the hollow gleam of bone. Empty sockets stared at Andre, jaw hanging in a grin too wide, too knowing. The robe slipped from its shoulders, falling across the crypt floor like discarded skin, leaving only the skeleton beneath. Andre stumbled back, nearly dropping his candle. The air grew cold enough to sting his lungs, and the whisper filled the chamber, not from the figure, but from the walls themselves, from the skulls stacked in their niches. "Stay with us. Andre, join us." The skeleton reached a bony hand toward him. Andre bolted, his candle nearly extinguished in the rush of his steps. He clawed his way up the stair, gasping as if pursued, though when he turned, the crypt lay silent again, its darkness swallowing all movement. When dawn came, he tried to speak of what he had seen, but Brother Pavel only pressed a finger to his lips. "Not here," he whispered. His eyes darted to the walls, as though they too were listening. Later that day, as the monks gathered for their meager meal, Andre noticed something dreadful. Another seat stood empty. Brother Mikhail, who had sung psalms the night before, was gone. His name was not spoken, his absence ignored. The silence was unbearable. Every clink of the wooden spoons echoed like a scream in his ears. Andre felt as though he were the only one still awake among sleepwalkers. That evening, while the others prayed in the chapel, Brother Pavel touched Andre's sleeve. "Meet me after Compline," he murmured, eyes urgent. "There are things you must know." True to his word, when the final prayers ended, Pavel led Andre through a side passage into a narrow chamber lit only by a single oil lamp. The stone walls were covered with charcoal drawings, symbols like those carved on the locked doors. Circles within circles, intersected by jagged lines. "They are wards," Pavel explained, his voice low. "Long ago, this monastery was under the rule of an abbot who turned from God. He sought to bind the dead, to make their silence serve him. He failed, but what he woke never left. Andrei's blood ran cold. The bells. They are its summons, Pavel said grimly. Each toll weakens the wards. Each disappearance feeds it. His hand shook as he traced one of the symbols on the wall. We cannot leave. We are bound here, as you are now. A sound shivered through the stone, the deep, resonant beginning of a bell. Andrei's chest tightened. It's happening again. Pavel seized his arm, eyes wide with terror. Then listen carefully, Andrei. Do not answer when it calls your name. No matter what you see, no matter who it wears, do not speak. For once you answer, the bell's second toll split the air. It will claim you. Andrei's candle died, plunging the chamber into darkness. The third toll thundered through the monastery, and the stones trembled as if the very earth recoiled. In the suffocating dark, Andrei groped blindly until his fingers brushed Brother Pavel's sleeve, only to find it cold, limp, as though no life remained within. Brother, he whispered, voice shaking. No answer. A faint glow seeped through the cracks in the chamber wall, flickering like candlelight from another world. And with it came the voices, dozens, hundreds, weaving together in a terrible harmony. Some pleaded, others wept, but all of them spoke one word, again and again. Andrei. His knees buckled. He pressed his hands to his ears, but the voices seeped through skin and bone, filling his skull. The glow brightened until it bled through the chamber door, and slowly the latch began to lift. Andrei staggered back as the door creaked open. Beyond it stood Brother Iosif, or what were his face. His eyes were pits of shadow, his mouth curling in a smile too wide for human flesh. Come, Andrei, it crooned, the voice both Iosif's and countless others entwined. You need not fear us. We're your brothers. We're your home. Andrei shook his head violently, clutching the wooden cross at his neck. No. The figure took a step closer. Behind it, more monks appeared, their faces pale, hollow, each bearing the same awful grin. Their robes swayed though no wind stirred. The fourth toll rang out, and the chamber seemed to stretch, its walls receding into endless darkness. The drawings of the wards peeled and burned from the stone, their lines unraveling into smoke. Panic surged through Andrei. He turned to flee, but the path behind him dissolved into shadow. The only way was forward, toward them. Andrei, one of the pale monks whispered, its tone suddenly tender, almost fatherly. You were chosen, as we were. Speak, and your suffering ends. The air grew heavy. His lungs ached for breath. His own name pulsed inside his head, louder than the bells, louder than his heartbeat. For a moment, he felt himself breaking. His lips parted, the first syllable trembling at the edge of his tongue. Then, a hand clamped over his mouth. Brother Pavel, his face pale, his eyes wild with fear, but alive. Don't, he hissed into Andrei's ear. Not a word. The fifth toll shook the monastery like a thunderclap. The apparitions shrieked, their forms rippling like smoke torn by a storm. The false monks reached for him with claw-like hands, their mouths open in silent screams. Andrei clung to Pavel as they stumbled through the collapsing chamber. The glow thickened, swirling into shapes, faces twisted in torment, eyes stretched wide, mouths forever calling his name. They burst into the cloister just as the sixth toll echoed. Shadows spilled across the arches, rising higher than the walls themselves, writhing like serpents of night. Pavel dragged Andrei toward the chapel doors, his voice hoarse. If we can reach the altar, the wards may yet hold. Run! Behind them, the bells tolled again. 7th, 8th, each louder, closer, until it felt as though the sound came not from the tower, but from inside their very bones. Andrei stumbled, fell to his knees, the stone floor slick with something warm. When he raised his hand, it glistened red. Blood seeped from the cracks between the stones, forming streams that flowed toward the chapel. The 9th toll rose, and the doors of the chapel swung open by themselves. Inside, a shadow waited. The 9th toll still reverberated in the air as the chapel doors yawned wide, their hinges groaning like the jaws of some ancient beast. Beyond lay the altar, but the sanctuary that once glowed with holy light was swallowed in shadow. At its heart stood a figure, faceless, robed in darkness that seemed spun from the absence of all sound. Andrei felt the pull immediately. Every drop of blood flowing from the floor crept toward the altar, as if the very stones bled to feed this thing. His chest constricted, ribs aching under an invisible weight. Brother Pavel clutched his arm, forcing him to stand. His voice was ragged but fierce. Do not look at it. Fix your eyes on the cross. Keep moving. But Andrei's gaze betrayed him. The faceless figure lifted its hand, and from where its mouth should have been came a voice not heard with ears, but carved directly into the mind. You are ours. The bells have named you. Speak, and we shall free you from the burden of flesh. The 10th toll roared, so loud the stained glass shattered, raining shards upon them. The fragments cut into Andrei's skin, yet he felt no pain, only the steady, hypnotic pulse of the voice inside his head. He staggered forward, as though drawn on strings. Pavel blocked his path, seizing him by the shoulders. Fight it. Do you hear me, Andrei? It thrives on your voice. Deny it. The faceless shadow stretched taller, tendrils unfurling across the chapel walls. The crucifix above the altar twisted, its form warping into something unrecognizable. The 11th toll shook the ground, and the bells no longer sounded like iron. They sounded like screams. Andrei's vision blurred. He felt his lips move, ready to give the answer the thing demanded. But then he remembered the silence, the vow that had once bound these monks. Not prayer, not song, not speech. Silence. His trembling hand lifted the wooden cross at his neck. He pressed it against his lips, sealing them shut. No words would come. The shadow recoiled as though struck. Its tendrils writhed, and the unholy chorus faltered, breaking into shrieks of rage. The altar cracked. From its depths came a torrent of fire and ash, sweeping through the chapel. Brother Pavel dragged Andrei toward the door. Together they hurled themselves out into the courtyard as the 12th and final toll shattered the monastery. Stone walls split and fell, the bell tower collapsing in a storm of dust and fire. The cries of the lost monks dissolved into the roar of destruction. When silence finally returned, only ruins remained. Andrei lay on the cold ground, coughing, his ears ringing. Beside him, Pavel leaned on the broken wall, his face ashen but alive. Is it over? Andrei croaked. Pavel's gaze lingered on the horizon, where the rising sun painted the sky with pale gold. He shook his head. The bells will toll again. Perhaps not here, perhaps not soon, but they always find a voice to answer them. Andrei shivered. Somewhere in the distance, carried faintly on the morning wind. He thought he heard it, a single, low chime. The silence had only just begun.